Brilliant. So I will hand over to Holly, who's going to talk to us about conducting a supervision meeting with a PA.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Holly. So I work for the Independent Living Group. I'm an employment law advisor, and I'm here today to talk to you about the purposes of supervision meetings. Now, I'm going to start off pretty straightforward with the statutory framework. So although there is no legal definition of a supervision meeting, it is actually guided by legal frameworks such as the Employment Rights Act. So we're more so looking at what is good practice, let's say. So there's different types of supervision meetings that you can get. However, the main purpose of it and what is called as good practice is to maintain open communication, reflection, and feedback. Now, the key purposes of these is to establish trust, clarify the expectations, so that can be from both parties. It doesn't always have to be the employer, it can be the employee as well, and to ensure both the employer and the PA feel supported throughout the employment. Now, just to provide you with an example on that, so let's say, for example, you're just freshly recruiting a new PA. You might start off by conducting regular one-to-one supervision meetings. The reason for that is to establish trust early on, open communication, and to ensure that barriers and expectations are clearly met early on. Now, this can help establish conduct matters that may arise, or for example, let's say further training. They may have just started work and they may be struggling with feeding, let's say. That further training will allow you to make sure that your health needs are being clearly met. Now, in regards to the benefits of a working relationship, is because it encourages honest discussion and collaboration. It prevents minor issues from becoming bigger problems and supports the PA's confidence and development. Now, just to add to the confidence and development, back into what I was saying is, let's say you've just freshly started a new PA in regards to your employment. We've got that big supervision meeting coming up. That is the probation review meeting. Now, that probation review meeting, it doesn't have to be anything as formal, let's say. So it can just be a one-to-one meeting between you and your PA where you just take notes. You can draft a skeleton, for example, of key things that you want to discuss. So, for example, what are they enjoying about the role? What would they like to further grow on? Are they requiring further training? Is there anything that's in the back of their mind that they wish to openly declare? Now, that can also be health needs. So it can be their own, let's say they've got their own medical needs, such as epilepsy, they may want to take that opportunity to raise that to you within that probation review meeting. I don't want to jump straight on conduct now, but before I do so, I just want to start off by saying that review meeting, if you are noticing any conduct matters within that, that is your chance for open communication to air that with them. Now, that can be by either further one-to-one meetings if you wanted, but also that's your opportunity to clearly outline to them what is not meeting your employment expectations. For example, is there excessive phone use? If you wanted to, if there was excessive phone use, that would be the perfect opportunity to say to them, we are going to review this in a week's time. That doesn't have to be done by a review meeting. That can just be done by a simple supervision meeting at the end of their shift, pull them to the side for 10 minutes and say, look, you are improving on this. However, I have noticed on ... there are still certain things that you need to improve on. So in regards to professional conduct, if in that probation review meeting, let's say, you are noticing significant conduct concerns, that would be escalated to more of a formal supervision meeting. So that would be where you would be required to take notes of that meeting. They do, depending on the meeting, they do actually have the right to be accompanied. So that can be by a trade union representative or by a work colleague. And it is important that within that meeting, you remain calm, respectful, and confidential. Now, a big way to remain calm is before going into any formal conduct supervision meeting, I would strongly recommend that you do look at the evidence. So throughout the employment, do make sure that you are maintaining accurate documentation of what was discussed. This professional approach will allow any sensitive issues that you do raise or that you may feel uncomfortable raising, but they've got to be raised, to be tackled constructively and help maintain a positive working environment. Supervisions are a chance to address concerns early agree on solutions, and make sure that PA's views are heard. Now, in regards to these supervision meetings, there are different types. So like I said, so although there's no necessarily legal definition, that supervision can fall within a performance and development meeting. So the sessions can be based on an individual's work, you can set objectives, and you just can discuss training needs. It can also be for welfare meetings. Now, a welfare meeting is more based upon a medical need, let's say. So let's say you've noticed that they're suffering with anxiety or they're holding back as such. So that can be in regards to conversations. They may be a bit shy. Now, within that welfare meeting, that would provide you with the opportunity to ask them, have they been to a GP? You've noticed this. Are they on any medication? Their health in general? Any barriers to work? So are there any reasonable adjustments that you can implement to support them within the workplace? This may be a longer rest break. It may be a chair within the room so they can sit down and have a rest should they need to. And ultimately, what support can you offer under your duty of care that also ensures your care needs are thoroughly met within that? So although it is a supervision meeting, it is important that it is titled a welfare supervision or a welfare meeting as such, because that will allow you with the opportunity to ask them really about their health needs and what you can do under your duty of care to support them within the workplace. Now, like I touched on a moment ago, if you are noticing significant conduct concerns, let's say, you may have all heard of this before, but it would fall within a more of a formal meeting. So that would be a disciplinary hearing. Now, a disciplinary hearing follows on from really an investigation meeting. So that would be your fact-finding supervision meeting, let's say. So that wouldn't be where you put any evidence to them, but it would simply be where you ask them for their side of events, really. Once you have gathered that, that is when you would invite them into that formal disciplinary hearing, and that is where you would imply guilt and make any accusations. And then, like I said, I don't want to dwell too much today on the formal side of things, but in regards to informal meetings. So this informal meeting can be the easiest way for me to describe it is because obviously I'm more of like from a legal background would be a letter of concern. So let's take away the disciplinary. Let's say they've done something, but actually you really value them as a PA. You want to keep them, but you need to address this conduct matter that has arisen and it cannot happen again. So this would be done by an informal meeting. Now that informal supervision meeting, you wouldn't need to take any minutes off it, and it would be a one-to-one with you and your PA, and it would be the opportunity for you to address less formal conduct concerns that you have noticed. So that could be conversations to address a problem and to help resolve it before they escalate. After you've had that meeting, we would always encourage you to make sure you maintain documentation of any discussions that have been had. That can even be done by a text message just to follow up on what was said. However, we can also look at issuing a letter as well. That can be done by email or by post just to discuss and outline what was said within that meeting and that you would require immediate improvement. The legal considerations within this is a big one is confidentiality. So information that is discussed within these supervision meetings, whether that be an informal meeting, whether that be a formal meeting, a welfare meeting, or just a check-in meeting really to see how they are doing. So it must be considered as personal data. So that means that the data must be handled in line with the data protection laws. So for example, let's say due to your health needs, you may need to record that meeting. If both parties agree to that recording, that cannot be shared and it must be stored securely. Discrimination is also another one. So this is more in regards to a welfare meeting. So let's say you've had an employee off sick. They may require reasonable adjustments for that supervision meeting. So that can take place over the phone, for example. So a supervision meeting, it doesn't have to be face-to-face. Like I said, there's no legal definition on what the supervision meeting is. So it's entirely up to you and your employment on how you wish to conduct that meeting. They may also require support. That can be by a friend. If you're happy for them to bring a friend, that can also happen. Now, in regards to a supervision meeting, a big one as well is consultation. So in certain some circumstances, I don't know, let's pick, for example, a risk assessment. You've got to risk assess the workplace. They've just newly started with you. So that would be under health and safety. So you may need to consult with them and go room to room to establish what may cause a hazard, what may cause harm to them, and have a meeting afterwards to see what adjustments you can put in place. And it may even include a maneuver, for example. So let's say manual handling. They may feel uncomfortable, let's say if it's on an uneven surface, and you can have a one-to-one meeting to consult and see how you can make that maneuver be successful. Now, in regards to a review meeting, let's say probation review meeting, I would always encourage you to have an agenda for that meeting. So a structured agenda on what you will be discussing will allow you to kind of put in place a checklist, let's say. So that may be used to keep yourself focused on what's being discussed, or if the employee is to go off topic, you can then redirect back to the checklist that you made and the agenda, and you can go through question by question. It may also make you feel at ease as well. And a big thing with this is if you are documenting a discussion, whether that be formal or informal, I would always say that agenda will also help you with your notes. Um, so in regards to discussion, so the discussion would be an opportunity for you to discuss any concerns and issues arising from the work situation. So let's pick an example. You may have a dog. They may feel uncomfortable working around that dog. You may find that within that one-to-one session, you may need to come to an agreement. Whatever that agreement may be, that discussion will allow you to elaborate on what works for both parties. So that may be to keep it in a separate room, for example, or it may be PA might feel uncomfortable taking it on long walks. So you may find it beneficial to accompany them alongside those walks. In regards to supervision meetings, I would always encourage you as well to set the tone. So the example I keep going back to is when you start a new employee, that's why I'd always encourage you to have those one-to-one meetings. Don't have to be every week, every 3 weeks, for example, whatever works for your needs, but it means you set that tone. So it enables you where if anything does arise, whether that be conduct, medical, or whether that just be, let's say, just going through a bit of an awkward phase between you and your PA, you've set the tone there where you allow the dialogue for open discussion, for them to feel comfortable, for them to trust you, to speak to them about any concerns they may have, but also for yourself as well. Ultimately, you need to be able to trust your PA. And a big one to encourage that would be to talk frequently. Review meetings are great, but like I said, they can be more formal as such. So just make sure you are having those regular supervision meetings one-to-one when they finish work or when they start work, see how they're getting on. And then as soon as you get into that probation review meeting, you can do it more intense. And that will establish a pattern. So it's all in the eyes of the law, it all comes down to reasonableness. So what is reasonable to expect from an employer? So if there is an informal issue that cannot be tackled, that is when you would escalate it to formally. Just where you can, do try to encourage confidence within those meetings. Make sure they feel supported, but also if you're not feeling too supported by your PA, you need the opportunity to say that to them as well. Make sure you maintain honesty, confidence, and yeah, that's that.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Holly. That was really wonderful. That was really informative. Before we move on to the Q&A, Resh, at the last session you were at, your question didn't get answered, and I'd like to make that a priority to get your question answered, and then we can move on to Q&A for Holly, or just sharing our any questions that we have. So I don't know if Resh, I'm going to turn the recording
I
off.
can't remember